welcome this week's conversation. And today we're gonna take a trip. Principal, we're gonna take a trip down under. We're also gonna take a trip to Ireland, and we're gonna be talking about a concept I knew about was available in Australia, but I actually didn't know it was available in this part of the world, Northern Europe. So I'm gonna talk with Darragh, that is the master franchise for Zambrero in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And we're going to talk a bit about, it's really interesting his background and why he chose to come into the restaurant industry, which we all know notoriously is a challenging industry, and why he actually choose, the master franchise route, why he choose that brand, what the power of that brand is. So with that said, welcome to the show, Darragh.
Thank you very much for having me, Michael. Looking forward to having a chat about Zambrero and everything else.
So could you, from a context point of view, probably good because I already mentioned that you didn't originally come from the restaurant industry, but to talk a bit about your background, what led you to join the restaurant industry, and maybe also a third question within that, and where are you now with Sambaro?
So yeah, my background was probably not the traditional route. I grew up with a rugby ball in my hand since a child. My dad played rugby and captained Leinster, which is our province, and the team I would have went on to play for. And it was a big, big part of my life. During my journey with rugby, again, wasn't probably the traditional route. I spent a year down in Galway with Connacht, which is another province in Ireland. I had a burst appendix at Christmas and unfortunately got cut in budget cut to the end of the season, which was kind of heartbreaking why I was being cut in a business decision rather than on a rugby based decision, which was pretty hard to take. But I had an opportunity to go to Australia at the time to play with a guy, played a team that was coached by a guy, Sean McCarthy, who I used to play with and was a good friend of mine. And Sean was a player backs coach there in Australia. So I got told on a Tuesday night at about 10 o'clock coming out of the cinema that I was getting cut the next morning. I was obviously devastated, heartbroken, didn't know what to do. This is June time, preseason for rugby teams is starting back in July. So it's like anything that everyone's roster would have been full at that stage, would have picked their squad for the following season. I was in panic mode. I was obviously, like I said, just devastated. I rang Sean on the way home from the cinema at night. I was like, is there still an option for me to come to Australia? He's like, I could have you here this weekend. I was like, book it. Woke up Wednesday morning. I was back in Dublin at my parents' house at the time, and woke up, came down that morning, telling them I was cut from Connacht. I was moving to Australia. I thought I was leaving. This was Wednesday morning. I thought I was flying out Friday morning. My ticket came through. I was actually flying out Thursday morning. So I had a big scramble that day, got on a plane the next morning, and ended up in Canberra in Australia, which was madness. Joined a rugby club, the Canberra Vikings there, had a great time there. But while I was there, one of the first things I did, I moved into a house with a couple of Australians and one Kiwi. First thing they did on the Sunday after they had a match on the Saturday was bring me to Zambrero. So we just went and do what most rugby players do, eat a lot of food. And we went to Zambrero. From day one, I loved it. I just ate it as a customer, but I was never sitting there being like, oh, I'm going to bring this back to Ireland. This is a business for me. Just ate it for my time there. I spent about 18 months in Australia and then came back and actually got picked up by my local province, or by Leinster, which would have been who my dad played for, where I grew up, and obviously the team I supported as a kid, which was crazy. And went on to spend the next 3 years playing at Leinster. So it was really dream come true stuff. It was very late in my rugby journey. I was 27 years of age when they signed me, which is pretty unusual. And I was in probably my second year. Sean, who had brought me to Australia, actually got involved with Zambrero, took it from Canberra up to North Queensland into Townsville. And he came to the opportunity of, he took it up there and it really exploded. He joined, I think he opened store 13 for them at that stage. This is 2.5 2 years later, probably, and he was up towards store 20 already in North Queensland. He had taken on the rights of Queensland with our other business partner, Shane. And he said, Zambrero looking at Ireland, they're looking at the UK, I suggested maybe Ireland. You knew the brand. Before I left Australia, I actually helped Sean for about 6 weeks. I opened a second restaurant, just went up, lived with him, myself and his wife. Spent 6 weeks getting their second restaurant off the ground. And it was I literally was just doing it to help some friends out. I had some time to kill before I was going on a rugby sevens trip around Asia, and went up, worked for 6 weeks. I worked in a restaurant, did my training in the evening, and it was great fun. And I learned the business then. Obviously, loved the food. I got to eat it free every day, which was probably the big perk for me at the time. And so Sean and I came to me with that idea of bringing Zambrero to Ireland. And his idea to head office to our founder was go to Ireland, figure it out. It's a smaller market in the UK, get a supply chain, get the operation set up, and then look down the line to go with a bigger attack on the UK. And that's what brought me here today. So that phone call was 9 years ago in August. I had no plans to get into restaurant business. I definitely knew I wanted to do something for myself. I was probably always been quite entrepreneurial. And then that opportunity came and I took it. Probably didn't think it was a pretty rash decision, but I'm delighted I did it now.
And was it the perfect timing at that point because you were still in your career? Was it, or did you have to
Um,
make a choice quite quickly?
no, it probably worked out to be perfect timing, but for me at the time, no, so from that August, that following season, that was probably my best season with Leinster. I would have played a lot of games, about 24, 25 games that season out of about 30 top prize for the year. So I was, well, learning the business in the background and learning the business with small things like, Sean would send me all the information to read. I would go out and meet different suppliers. Like we were trying to set up a meat supply was big for us, a sauce supply, a distribution partner. So, the one thing as a rugby player I had, and I still would give this advice, not that I'm some genius, but we have a lot of free time. That was one thing, like your normal week, for us in Leinster, if we had a Saturday game, we go in on a Monday. If we had a game on Saturday, we might just do some light gym in the morning, some stretching, do some video, have lunch. No, sorry, get given breakfast, do some video, do some light stretching, gym, get given lunch. Maybe do a light walkthrough in the pitch some days. You might even put on your rugby boots, while walking on the asphalt turf. Go through some stuff for the weekend, come back in, get some physio, go home, and that's 3 o'clock. You're walking out of work after being fed twice. You might have had a massage in that time. Similar run on a Tuesday, we'll have two pit sessions. You'll have a light back one and then a sort of team one. Wednesday's a full day off. If we have Friday game, Thursday's just a captain's run on for 40 minutes on Thursday morning, and a game Friday, and then you might have Saturday, Sunday off. If you have a Saturday game, you would have a light gym session, a short pitch session Thursday, captain's run Friday, game Saturday, Sunday off. So invariably, we nearly had 2.5 days a week off every week, plus your full days now I see are actually like half days. So I had a lot of time to go out and meet people, have chats. The big thing for me at the time was playing for Leinster. It opened a lot of doors and gave a lot of opportunities where a lot of people were happy to meet me. Now, I always say to people, it's not like, oh, they wanted to sit down and have a chat with Darragh Fanning, the rugby player. They wanted to have a chat with the rugby player that played with a Brian O'Driscoll or a Johnny Sexton or a Shane Jennings or a Gordon Darcy, these guys. And they'd, like, you meet these businessmen and they turn into 14, 15-year-old schoolboys. Like, how strong is he? How fast is that guy? I heard this guy can do that. We'd have those chats and then I'd get my bit of business done at the end. And that was a huge thing that helped me at the start. Was definitely a lot of doors were open for me with people. And that's sort of what happened that year. And probably my best season with Leinster was planning was going on in the background. Our coach, unfortunately, got let go at the end of that season. And I played the very first game of the next season and didn't play again. And exited either 2 years left of my contract and they bought me out of my contract, and which ended up being great. Kind of when eventually we got a deal, it was 2 weeks before our first restaurant
Oh,
opened, and I went full 2 feet into the rest. My original plan was learn it in the background and be hands off, and the way it's worked out, obviously gutted to finish the way I did with Leinster, but it stood me in good stead now with Zambrero that I really understand the operation. I could still walk into a Zambrero restaurant today and run it from open to close and do all the tasks that I needed as a team member working, not only as a manager or supervisor, but as the team member on the shop floor.
and and I guess also it'd be interesting to hear here, what is the concept for people that doesn't know what Zambrero is, and then also how far are you now, 9 years down the road? What's happened?
Um, so yeah, so we jumped in. I suppose Zambrero is an Australian franchise founded by a Sri Lankan Scottish doctor selling a modern Mexican fusion food. So it's a complete melting pot of stuff, but it's essentially we are modern Mexican fusion. We're burritos, bowls, tacos. We are like your traditional burrito bar, but I see this as a bit of a twist. We've definitely a big health element. You come into a restaurant where we still have your traditional Mexican elements with a sort of healthy and fresher twist. So you still have your rice, your beans, your protein. But then rather than say with some of our competitors, you might have one salsa, one bit of salad. We're very heavily salad, salsa, fresh produce focused. And the great side of Zambrero and from Sam's background and through his mother, we have a great CSR side of the business with our plate for plate model where for every burrito bowl sold, we donate a meal to someone in need, which is currently at about 74 million meals donated, which is a phenomenal number.
Wow. So where are you now with your master franchise? What's happened on the journey? You opened your first restaurant, and I know you've done a couple of more since.
Yeah, so we've had a busy run lately anyway. So the deal we made with Sombrero at the start was, and this is what I always said at the start. So our first hire was a guy, Niall O'Connor. Niall's my operations manager. Niall is my work wife, as I say. We're a husband and wife combination, and he's been with me since the start. He started with us the November before we opened the following March. So he spent some time in Australia. I then in my off season, the pre-season before, spent 6 weeks in Australia doing my training. And when we opened Hatch Street, the two of us were running it like two restaurant managers. But really, when we were getting Hatch Street going, it wasn't just to get one restaurant. We were trying to lay a foundation for multiples of restaurants and multiples of sombreros. And so that was really refining an operation, really refining and getting a strong supply chain. Because even though we're the very same as Sombrero Australia, we're slightly different in certain ways. And I suppose I see that now more so that every restaurant in Ireland works slightly differently. Some have busy lunch, some have busy evenings, some just go all day long from open to close. So it's trying to figure that out where, say, the restaurants, myself and all trained in Australia, were very different to Hatchley. But we were trying to at the start, we're like, no, we should be doing it this way, even though it's the other way. And it was trying for us to get a head around that. So in the agreement, we have to open 3 company restaurants before we were allowed franchise out. So we had Hatch Street. We spent about a year getting that up and going. 11 months later, we went and opened in Cork, which is about a 3-hour drive away from Dublin, which made no sense, but it's a fantastic location. It's actually up to 21 sites now. It's our best store in the country. So it was worth it, but it was a lot of pain at the start, definitely trying to open your second restaurant 3 hours apart. Now, for some people listening, 3 hours in the car isn't much, but for people in Ireland, you can literally drive from Dublin to any corner of Ireland in about 3-4 hours. So it's a long way away. And then from there, we opened Pier Street, another site in Dublin. And then from there, we got our first franchise partners a year later, Cameron and Marina, who have Beacon in Sandyford, Dublin store. So they were always going to be the hardest to get. Getting the first franchisee is a tough one. Like I had a guy who approached me this week about a site, and I spoke to him originally 6 years ago. And through mutual contact, he told them recently, he said, I actually love Zambrero, but I didn't want to be the guinea pig. I didn't want to be the first guy or second guy in. I wanted to see what happened and stand back and watch. And now he's come back, 5-6 years later. So that was the big one for us, getting Cameron and Marina signed, getting Beacon open and showing now the models of franchise. Once you have one franchise partner, when you've other potential franchisees, you can bring them and they can chat to you because they're never going to believe what I say. I can be like, oh, it's the best ever. It's great. It's this and that. They want to hear from people who are living, breathing life as a Sombrero franchisee every day. And that's what happens now. We have franchisees come invariably. I'll always say, there's a list of restaurants, pick any you want, because I know the service we're giving is good. I have a great relationship across all the restaurants with the franchisees and managers. And they do have phone calls with us with potential franchisees, which helps get the sale across the line across.
What is the philosophy behind the brand? Because I know from studying the brand, there's a unique proposition as well that has to be lived through. You already said that there's a more healthy, fresh produce angle on the food philosophy.
Yeah, I suppose. And even since I saw Sombrero first 13, 14 years ago, it's in all the changes and trends we've gone, it's always been superfoods, health foods, healthier and healthier, plant-based food, plant-based proteins. It's always, I feel as a brand, we've always worked really well in moving with trends. And what we've definitely seen in the last number of years is flexitarianism is huge now. Not like, yes, vegans and vegetarians, the big word, and people think it's a huge The vegans and vegetarians, as I would say, are probably the loudest of our customers, as in they're the people that think the Instagram photos most and talk about it most and get out there most. But really, if you dive into sales, vegan and vegetarian food is a small portion when you compare it to chicken or beef or pork. The meat proteins are still way ahead. But definitely what we've seen in the change and why we've seen a growth in that area in the last few years is having regular customers who would always be chicken burrito, chicken burrito, chicken burrito. Well, now we're seeing is the odd time I bring, do you have a vegetarian option? Do you have a vegan option? And I even know through my own friends and stuff, a lot of people wouldn't be uncommon now for people to have a vegetarian dinner 1 day a week. Or if I think back to kids, like, and my mum suggests to my dad, we're going to have a vegetarian, he would have thought there was something wrong with her. So that's just the way the world is moving. And I think Sombrero has definitely moved well with trends.
What is it that makes the model unique? Because there's you're gonna choose, and I don't know, a million is probably over exaggerating, but there's definitely tens of thousands of franchise restaurant models you could have chosen around the world. Why that? Beside you were a happy customer, but why do you think it's so
Um,
common?
Yeah. Well, for me, getting in somewhere was a good friend who I really trusted and saw it was going really well, had an opportunity to go into business with him. And
Yeah.
that's it. You know, I still have I spoke to Sean twice already today. I still speak to him every day. A lot of times it's just two friends chatting on the phone. My wife does make jokes, wondering sometimes if she hears us on Zoom calls or it's like, do you ever chat about anything else rather than rugby? But because that would be our chat and it is fun, but it's nice having someone with you to celebrate the successes with. You know, I love ringing Sean to be like, even this morning call, yeah, we got that restaurant across the talking about a new site opening next year. And it's brilliant. And you can celebrate that with your friends. And I even had that with my head office crew now. You know, we celebrate wins together. And that was definitely the big thing was going into business with Sean. And like I say, I believed in the model. I believed in the product. I didn't know anything really. I actually genuinely knew nothing about the plate for plate. I knew nothing about the simple backhouse operation. For all I knew, there could have been 20 chefs in the kitchen making up the Zambrero food every day. I just knew I loved the product and my friends in Australia loved the product. And I was like, these people are the exact same people in Ireland that I would see eating this. And that sort of was why for me, I made the quick rash decision that I did. But I think what makes us different now when I'm trying to sell, because a lot of people who come to us looking to open a Zambrero have invariably looked at a number of our direct competitors or even just food competitors in general. They're not just looking, they're not choosing between a gym franchise and a food franchise. It's generally they want to go into food and they want to go into franchise, and this is sort of the area you're looking at. The big thing for me is the simple operation. Zambrero is so easy. Now, I don't really know much else. I've learned more over the years. I've got out to see other brands and see backhouse operations, but we've no chefs in our kitchens. You know, all our staff do all our tasks. So I know from a pal of mine involved in a different franchise, their wok chefs takes 4 months to train up. If that wok chef leaves after 4 months one day, they're back to square one. We have a 4 day training plan. For us, it's you get a staff member in. If you come to me with a bit of will and want to learn, I will teach you how to open and close and row very, very easily. And that's the great thing for us. It is very, very simple. It can be simply done wrong, but it is simple as well. So that's why training and staff is such a huge part of our business.
Can you talk a bit more about that approach to training and getting? I guess it's really critical in the world we live in now with staffing and so on, like really getting people up to speed quickly. Can you talk a bit about what is the foundation of that training and how do you take people through?
Yeah. So recruitment has got harder. We used to put an ad up and you'd 200 CVs come into you. You'd have all different walks of life, all different from local kids in college to farm students coming in studying English. We had hundreds. And then it went to stage where you could put up an ad and you could be 2 days waiting for someone to apply for it. And it's got back a bit easier now, but the one thing I learned since day one in Hatch Street to now is with Sombrero, you need to hire personalities. You need people to come in and, as we call it, a bit of theatre behind the counter and a bit of entertainment and a bit of chat and a bit of conversation. Because what I thought was great staff day one, day two in Zambrero is not. Like the guys, I remember in Zambrero when we opened Hatch Street first, you know, lunch would be winding down and guys would run into the kitchen and jump in, wash the dishes. And I was thinking, these are the guys I want in my restaurant. You know, look how keen he is. He's getting the dishes washed. And for me, I associate as a child being made wash the dishes as nearly a punishment. When actually, now I don't. If I'm in one of the restaurants or watching it, it's actually a grand task because you'll be standing chatting to your friend beside you. So it's actually not as bad as I used to think as a child. But what I realized over time, it's not the staff that are running to get away and hide out back. It's the staff that are hanging around out front, chatting to customers, remember faces. Did you enjoy that last week? How was that? Why don't you try this instead? I noticed you always go for Chipotle. Why don't you go for mix up a little bit of red chili, make it hotter? That's what people love. And, you'd be surprised how much people just love the usual. Like that is the simplest thing ever. But some people just love that they know that's my place, that's my guy, he knows my dish, and it's easy. And so that's a big thing for us with training. So we have obviously our standard 4-day training plans, but a big thing for us with recruitment is trying to meet a young guy, a young girl who can sit and look you in the eye and have a conversation with you.
If we go out more, like you said, it's become a bit easier with the staffing. What is, in your view, one of the pressing issues you would like to see in the restaurant world disappearing?
Uh, Inflation is obviously killing everyone at the
Yeah.
moment. Because I remember about a year ago reading a thing, and it was interviewing a famous chef now, and he said, you walk into any restaurant in the country now, and anything you see in there is more expensive, whether it's paint on the walls to the shoes on the waiter, everything there is more expensive than it was a year earlier. And just everything is going up and up and up. And we're seeing that all the time. It's tough. Again, we've a minimum wage increase coming in January. It's great. I fully deserve it. I know my staff deserve more money, but in line with that, we're going to have to up the price of our menu because that's just, unfortunately, we can't run the business at a loss. We've had a number of menu price increases over the last couple of years. And like the one thing I always hammer home to franchisees or managers, I've never just turned around on a Monday and go, let's up the prices next week, lads, and get a bit of a better margin. Let's be more profitable. I've only ever since day one, 7 years ago, up prices reactionary to, meat market trends, to labor increases, to VAT rate changes, to general produce, fresh produce has exploded in the last couple of years as well and gone up and up in price. So inflation is very tough. And that's, I suppose, we're in the middle of quarterly reviews with our restaurants, and it's been on the tip of everyone's tongue getting on the call is, what can we do? And where we've got lucky as a brand, I think, in Ireland in the last couple of years is with all this inflation, we've been growing and opening restaurants and increasing sales. So our buying power has got better and better. So instead of before, I'd send one 40-foot container, get shipped in with packaging, and it'd be packed with 10 products. Now I'm getting a 40-foot container with 2 products. So our buying power has increased, which is probably, cancelled out a lot of the increases we've seen in a lot of our product and a lot of our Zambrero branded products anyway, particularly packaging, which is something that skyrocketed
Yeah.
their independents or their coffee shops and stuff the last few years.
Yeah. Yeah, it is spot on. And I think I heard the same kind of concern that, it's great that, our people deserve the right salary to be able to buy their food and pay their bills. But there's a reality as well of how do we mitigate that cost into the menus, how, if you don't have the buying power, where are you then standing in principle? Absolutely. I think you're very spot on that. What are you doing besides menu? Is there other things you're thinking as a large organization now, that how you're gonna manage that for the next 6 months? Hopefully we'll see inflation starting to come out, but we also know inflation and price increases are two different things. When prices go up, they rarely go down to the same again.
Yeah. And that's the truth as well. Like, you don't turn around 6 months time and go, oh, our tomatoes have come down by euros, let's drop them. That doesn't happen. Everything is. But I feel I think I mentioned it before when spoke, like I'm 9 years on this journey now. We've had Brexit, we've had the Ukrainian war, we've had COVID, we've had, all these different increases with the Suez Canal thing with containers skyrocketing. We used to pay $1,500 for a container, then it went to 15 grand for a container. And with all these crazy things, and at the end of every one, it's always like, oh no, in a couple of months, everyone will be back down. But all that I've seen is something's finished and another thing starts, something's finishing and another thing starts. So it's probably been one of the hardest decades to be in business, but it's been, yeah, obviously a lot of learnings, I would say, in the last number of years. With all these problems, you have to come up with solutions quite quick.
Yeah, and I guess also these obstacles just make you better, because if you overcome them, then they be ingrained as that's how it is. This is how the world is. And I guess like the ones I've seen or do you feel that really, they doesn't mean they haven't been frustrated, but they really used them and said, okay, we have to use this to make it an advantage. We almost need to go through the pain. And I think it leads very closely to the next thing actually I want to elaborate on. And you probably answer it because you come from the sports world, which is you said you were not drafted. You were like told you're out of the squad. So that's also like, sports person, that means that I can't use your skills. You're not good enough to be on my team.
Yeah, it's definitely, look, it was my dream to play professional rugby, and I got to do that, but I got to see the back end of it. And no matter who you are, like I was a, tiny wheel in a cog, but there's some superstars in there who come to the end of careers and they realize you're a piece of meat. You might have made this, you might have played for 10 years for this club, but they're not just going to be like, oh, we'll give him a 2-year extension at his old wage because he did so much just 5 years ago. It's literally, what value are you to them now? And it is quite ruthless. But back to what you're saying there is, like for me in business in the last number of years, I've probably learned the most through the stressful times. So, it's great when restaurants are flying and sales are going great. Yeah, you want to try to understand what they're doing well, but it's probably the other side is where I've seen the most, where now restaurants have gone through poor periods, or COVID was a big one for us, where really our business wound down in the space of a week. Like literally sales just stopped. And then you're trying to figure out how to get them back on. So you're back to square one. And it's definitely through them times we've learned and understood somewhere where we were used to walking into restaurants before COVID. It could be 7, 8 people on the line. And next you're trying to run a restaurant with 2 people. So you're trying to tweak operation, you're making changes and you're learning things. And that's where we've definitely learned the most. It's great to watch the top restaurants, the number one restaurants, see what they're doing, but it's definitely, we've had stressful times like this we were talking about earlier, when containers were meant to arrive a month ago or a month late. You're trying to come up with solutions for substitutes, or different things, or packaging or increases are happening. You're wondering, okay, how can you try to work this as best you can? So they're probably the times you learn the most. And yeah, definitely coming from a sport background, you do learn resilience. Like, I didn't win every week. I didn't get picked every week. I got dropped as much as I got picked. So you're used to getting knockbacks and setbacks, but it's just sort of about trying to keep going and keep driving forward and keep trying to stay positive. And that's what I've always done with Zambrero. And it's great now. Like, it's not like I'm going to sit back now and be like, okay, we're done now. Like, I've still lots more I want to do with Zambrero, but it is satisfying now to see where we are now. Like, it was probably hit me when we were opening Minute there last May. It was restaurant 17. And it wasn't, we were doing an induction with the staff and I was sort of chatting to them. And it was just as I went up to chat, Niall, our officer, said, it's great, there's a store 17. And it was only in that moment it hit me. I was like, oh my God, we've 17 restaurants. It just seems like such a huge number. It feels like a couple of years ago, we had 2, 3, 4. And it's really skyrocketed. We're at 21 now. We've another 5 happening before next March. It's really starting to escalate. But that's not saying we just want to stop. There's lots more we've got to do, but we also got to look back and focus on our hat streets, our peer streets, our restaurants that are 7 years open. How can we keep them, fresh and vibrant and changing and keeping the customers happy?
What is like because your ability as, you're growing the organization, what is your ability to, be positive? How do you do it? Because I guess everybody has different ways to manage that. What is like your secret? Like, is there any like, some people meditate
Um,
and meditate, but what is it that you do to get through that? Because it is hard. I
um,
see a lot of people actually break in the obstacle because they don't have some kind of, this is what I'm gonna go and do when it's tough.
I'm, I am a pretty happy, positive person. I think I always like to see the good in things and look at the plus side. But yeah, there's obviously stressful times, but I just know, like, there's stress and there's stress. There's stress for a restaurant being down a couple of grand in a week and having a bad week. And then the stress of people out there losing their homes, or, don't have a job. And I do realize how incredibly lucky I am. And that's the one thing I always just try to stand back and go,
Mm.
I am in a lucky position. I came from a rugby world where I see a lot of my mates coming out of rugby and they really struggle post rugby because it is tough. You've done something since, some of these guys have been in systems since 14, 15 years of age to 35, 36. They could be superstars at 35, 36, exit the game and they're back to square one. Like, they've Some of them mightn't gone to college. They've no life skills. They go in and start working in companies. They might get a nudge into a company because of who they are, but they realize when they get into a company, they have years of experience to catch up on. And there's guys 27, 28 who be working in these companies for 5, 6 years and have 5, 6 years experience. And college is great, doing masters or diplomas or extra things are great. But for me, life experience is huge. And like the amount I've learned in 7 years just in business is crazy. Like college can teach a certain amount, school, but it's life skills a lot of time. And it's actually being on the front line or being in the business working. So I do know how lucky I am at that. You know, I do work hard. But on the flip side, if you rang me to play golf next Friday morning, I could move my schedule and play golf next Friday morning. So I am very flexible like that. You know, I could take holidays, work on holidays, and I'm probably lucky enough that I get a couple of trips away a year with my mates where I just get to completely switch off. And whether it's golf trips or stag parties or different little trips away, and they're the ones where you just have a real blowout and you just literally forget about work for 48 hours and it refreshes me.
Yeah, because I guess it's like really, everybody has to find their own way. And it's like what you're saying, there's going to be obstacles. It's very interesting. You said that when you change, like significant change from professional sport into business or, any career you want to change, you're back to square one. And you find out that where you were the one, you were at the top of your game, you were running the fastest 2 months ago. Now you are starting again, like literally. And there's people
Eh,
you would be feeling that you should be competing with, you can't compete with.
And that's it. Like, I think it's the structure. The structure is something I always try to say to guys is try staying in a structure. Like, because the way I left Leinster and 2 weeks later with the opening hat street, and I was so caught up in that and we were opening a new restaurant, I didn't have time to think. It was so much to take on and very new for me. And it's like I see with new franchisees now, you know, problems I've seen then are nothings, but it was because brand new to me. I was panicking,
Yeah.
thinking it's this or that. Like me and I'll always laugh at openings. It's the same things that the new franchisees when it's their first time. Oh my God, this just happened or this is just turned off for that. And it's like, don't worry about it. Like that is nothing. We can still open the doors tomorrow and that can get fixed. It's a light in the bathroom. It's a light in the back kitchen. It's a nothing event. We can still open the restaurant. But that's the thing you used to panic about. But coming from sport, you're in a structure where I I know my schedule from the start of the season, from the middle of August to May time. Well, you know your weeks and you know where you are. Every 2 weeks, I might get my literally where I'm meant to be each hour. What I'm gonna even in stages, you're told what to wear for certain sessions. Like it's done that way for you. Your food's laid out for you when you walk in. Your washing is done for you after being like it is it's a great life. It's a very easy life. It comes with its own stresses and own, you know, hardships where you do have to be quite selfish. You do have to be very focused on yourself. And for me at the time, I wasn't married with kids, but I do envy guys who play professional sport who are married with kids because I see having kids now, that would be extremely tough trying to play sport and have kids. And, you've born in the house and you have a game on a Saturday that you're not meant to help your wife with, like, and that must be tough. So I was probably lucky I didn't have those things, but yeah, it's definitely the structure you leave of being told where to do at every time and what to do. It's like being in school. Like
Mm,
it's like being in school all the way till your mid 30s for some people.
yeah. Yeah, and you can see as well when what you need to learn young people when they come into the job market, and you probably see that in your business as well, is actually learn how to work because that's not like school. There's no one that's going to tell you. You need, maybe learn them just how do you actually show up and, how do you prepare
And,
yourself and all
and
those things.
definitely
You don't learn that.
for me in my role, it took me time to understand what I need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
Like I was probably too focused on minimum nothing tasks that aren't going to grow my business. And that's the attitude I started having to say, yes, I could. I used to do silly things like someone would ring in to Hatch Street sick. So I jump in and work a lunch rush in Hatch Street. Oh, sure, it's only 3 hours. But it was 3 hours out of my day where I was trying to plan for a bigger project down the line. But really looking back, I shouldn't have done it. It was great that I was really getting hands-on experience and learning the restaurant. But when we started to get number one, number two, number three, I need to start thinking of a whole group of restaurants rather than, I could save this restaurant 40 quid in their labor today. Really, the bigger picture is, well, how can I grow these four restaurants by €1,000 rather than saving €140? So it was for me understanding what to focus on because no one tells you. It's not like I go back to sport and rugby at the start of a week, we've a plan and a goal, and the coach is telling you, we're going to beat this team. This is how we're going to do it. This is our focus for the week and go on. Now I went to a situation where I was, I suppose, the boss, which I still think is funny thinking about myself like that. But I then had to think, okay, how am I going to lead this organization for a week? What am I meant to focus on? And it definitely took me time. Look, Sean was very hands-on at the start, very hands-on in the business sense. Now, like I say, we just get on the phone and slag each other or chat about sport and stuff. But back in the day, he was very hands-on as a mentor for me and making me understand what I need to focus on, the areas we need to go, and the direction we went in the business. Now he, day to day wouldn't have much. It would just be bigger stuff. We would bring him in the conversations. And that was from, I suppose, learning from him over a number of years.
Have you taken some of that structure, because I believe really much in structure and, consistency is really important as you're growing an organization, especially in the speed you're doing. Have you taken some of that from your sporting world as well? Like, okay, we know that, to get the best out of your team now, which will be your HQ team and your franchisees, I also need to be very clear about direction and purpose all the time.
Yeah, I think it's something I need to improve on because I don't know if any of my head office will listen to this, but they'll probably laugh because I sometimes change my mind on things from not even from day to day, from hour to hour. And I have this idea for something and I run with it, and then we might cancel it, we might do it. So I can be quite impulsive like that. And I'd say that for them is quite tough at times. But yeah, definitely I've become better at trying to narrow the focus as a group and set the targets and what are we aiming for. And someone said to me before, a good friend in Australia who has a number of McDonald's restaurants, and I spent some time with him last year when I was over there. And I remember the big thing for him is sales trumps everything else. He's like, you can have all the best of this and this and this. If your sales are going up and up and up and up, that's all you need to worry about. The other things can take care of themselves. But he's like, great, we could focus on, narrowing your labor down to this. But if your sales aren't growing, what's it mean? Sales trumps everything else. So you need to focus on, if I'm doing this task, can improve sales, and that's it. And that does knock back to training. Yes, training knocks on to sales because if you have poorly trained staff, people aren't going to return. So the big thing for us now is the big focus for us is training, because staff are our business, the front line. And Zambrero is a really easy product to make, but it's really easy to make wrong as well. And you want to just, as you get bigger, and you mentioned the word consistency there, as a franchise, we have to be consistent. You want to know, if you walk in Sombrero Collins Street, have a burrito. The next day you walk down Superior Street, have a burrito. The next day you go to Hatch Street. It's the same burrito. You don't be like, oh, that one's huge, or that one's really small, or geez, they lash loads of rice in that one, or loads of cheese. We have to be really regimented. And that's protecting everyone. So I always say to staff, like, you might think, oh, I know, load this guy up with a burrito, make it massive, but then it makes it hard to roll. You can't eat it properly. And then it sets the perception for him that he comes in the next day, he's expecting this monster, gets a normal sized burrito, and he thinks he's being shortchanged. So consistency is a huge one for us in our brand, and training is definitely a big focus for us next year. Well, it is always, but it's just something we've been chatting about with a plan, a new operational team plan we have for next year. Training is definitely a big plan in that.
What would you be your top advice for, you know, other leaders that want to build a better business as a force for good out there? Because as you mentioned, there's a lot of good business been done in the wider organization, but also you make lots of impact. You give lots of meals away to people in need. But what would your top advice be to people? Because it's really interesting. I guess you're talking about when you talked about with your Australian friend, and I have a McDonald's background as well. Exactly, your role is to understand how you increase the sale and the productivity. That's the only role you have, and if you're doing that, you're in the right direction. Anything else doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I suppose the plate for plate side of it is huge. It's an amazing initiative. It's a Sam or founder says it's in the DNA of the company, and it really is. We don't bang a drum about it. We're not in your face being like, oh look, we're giving these meals away. Look, it's, we talk about it. We have meal counters in our stores, and if a customer asks a staff member, our staff members are trained and they answer, and it's something on the audits that our operations team grade in the site and do, and one of the parts of the audits, they'll pull a random team member aside, they'll ask them a number of questions on plate for plate, how many meals are donated, what are the meals, where are they going, who's our charity partner, just so, because what you don't want is a customer asking a staff member, like, I don't know, I don't have to know what that is there. You want them to be able to have a conversation, explain what we're doing and the amazing impact. So we've hosted now in Ireland the last 2 years. We had a smaller one last year, a meal packing event where we actually bagged the meals. So the meals we donate is a small bag. It's got rice, lentil, soy. It's got a small sachet of minerals, and each bag contains 6 meals. So it's a little 400 gram bag of rice, lentil, soy. They go off around the world to many third world countries, and in the local areas, then they would make their own broth to or seasoning with these things. Now, I was lucky enough in September 2019, so just pre-COVID, so it was an amazing time to see it, because when COVID happened, it really opened my eyes. So I went to South Africa, to Johannesburg, and I got to see firsthand the Plate for Plate project in motion. So every year, Zambrero do a fusion trip, they call it. Our ops manager Niall went last year. Rodrigo, one of our other operations team, is going to go next May. They bring a group of franchisees from around Australia, a couple from Ireland, some from UK, and they go off to different countries, mainly to South Africa, is where we have a big partnership with Rise Against Hunger, have an office there, or headquarters there. And I got to see that firsthand, and it was such an amazing trip. It was great to connect with other Zambrero people and, chat to the Australian franchisees and realize it's not just my restaurant that staff turn up late for. It's not just my restaurant that staff decide I've lost my hat or I've lost my uniform. We're all living the same life, whether they're Irish or Australian, we're all the exact same. But it was amazing to see the project in operation. So we got to see all the way from the farms growing the food, all the way to the educational programs they work on. And a lot of the meals that Rise Against Hunger donate actually they call them creches, but they're schools for kids from, I think, 3 to 8 years of age. And it's early learning centers. The kids know if they go to each other, they get fed twice a day. So we went and saw those creches. We distributed out the boxes of meals. We actually, one of the creches ate the meals. I remember a guide had told me, we're going to wait till Thursday because the lady there makes the most amazing meal with the rice packs. Not to knock her as a chef, but it was just a very salty bowl of rice. But we sat and ate with the kids, and it was nice. And the one thing I took away from it was they were all just so happy. These kids literally had nothing, and they were amazingly happy people, such smiley, happy kids, and it really opened my eyes when COVID hit here, that in some of the townships we were in, it just would have run through like wildfire. COVID, they had no chance. And so that's another thing what I take with the project being involved somewhere. It does make me know how lucky I am after seeing something like that.
Yeah, and I get also it feels good that when you open your business every day, there's a good business reasons to do it. Also, it actually gives something away that's bigger than running a business. It gives life to
Yeah,
something.
and sorry, like I mentioned, our meal packing day this year, we bagged over 100,000 meals in my old school hall. We had over 350 volunteers come in over two
Wow.
sessions with a DJ, with music. And a lot of the volunteers that turn up today were just Zambrero regulars who turn up for the fun at some of our
So that was
corporate
your
partners.
customers showing up to
Some of
this
our
event.
customers, yeah. And that was the amazing. We had it we had a smaller one last year. And the amazing thing that I got out of that day was going around meeting people and just hearing the different stories. Oh, we just eat. There was a group of Trinity students. We like, well, we eat in Peer Street and so on the same thing. We just said it'd be a bit of fun to sign up and do it. And those guys came back this year, which was great. And just hearing the different connections, and as well for a lot of our supply partners came today and really, were high in as umbrella drug. It was also the day after Ireland lost to New Zealand in the quarterfinal, so the country was on a low. So it was a nice way to pick ourselves back up.
Yeah, I bet you. I bet you. What would you say your top learning has been the last couple of years as a business owner? Any learnings you can share with people who say that
Um,
really cemented for you?
I think that was definitely something I took from Australia last year was, making sure every day you're focusing on growing sales. And growing sales, like I said earlier, that could be training. Good, well-trained staff helps grow sales. Good marketing campaigns helps grow sales. Good operational restaurants helps grow sales. Good quality projects. So it's sort of understanding my focus was probably the big thing. Because like I say, I didn't have anyone be like, this week you need to focus on that week. So I probably got a bit more target driven and sales driven that way by knowing the numbers, setting my targets for the year, knowing what we have to do. And it's a goal to achieve and a goal to work for. And I suppose you're used to that in sport, I was setting goals and setting targets. It's probably something I didn't do in the early days. And I probably drifted month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. And definitely the last couple now I've got more focused. And I suppose just listening to people. I love meeting people and chatting to people and hearing their story and, getting advice off people, just meeting people for coffees and stuff through contacts. Definitely as I've got more into the, I suppose, restaurateur world and I've been to more events and stuff. I probably didn't go to a lot of networking events when I was younger. I didn't, as a question. And now I realize the contacts you can make, the connections you can make, the stories. And, Just Eat were very kind to bring me to the Champions League final in Turkey last year. It was a bit of a junket, but I actually took a lot from just sitting around with other people in different restaurant businesses, just hearing, chatting to them and made connections. I've actually done some stuff in the background with one of the guys I met on the trip. And that's definitely a big thing is networking. And it's something I actually do say to, like, I've done a few talks to current players through the Players Association. And like I said earlier on, I was in a privileged situation being a Leinster player and getting meetings set up for me and people would open the door and people would have a chat. And the thing I was trying to say to guys was, you know, I, I know you're wrecked. I know you're tired. I know you think it's hard, but trust me, in a few years' time, you work in a job where you're in there at 7 in the morning, you could be leaving the office at 10 at night. That's hard work. And then you could be coming on to a family and kids and wife and that's tough. So I just said, try use your time. If doors are open, if you're invited to events, go and don't just go to events and stand in the corner. Go around, meet people, chat to them, hear the story. If you have an idea on an area you might like to work in, go ask, could you one day a month for one half day a month, for 6 months, see if you like it, understand it. Because what I've seen with a lot of guys, they might be leaving the rugby world and be like, I want to get into finance. I want to get into corporate finance. They get into corporate finance at 35 after leaving rugby and they're a year in, they're like, actually, I hate this. I want to go into this. And why not figure that out when you're still playing? And then if you realize at 25, while you're playing, you like it, you can try grow a network. And like I try to explain to them that, you might have mates sitting in college or a master's course now who would give anything for a sit down with the head of a big company in Ireland. They don't have that luxury of ringing them up and asking for a chat. You have that luxury that you could be starting for Ireland because you're in a world in rugby that you're not going to make enough money to finish, pull your boots on, play golf for the rest of your life and, chill out. You're going to have something to fall back on post rugby. So that would be the big thing I would say to guys.
Great. Where can people find out more about you, Zambrero? Where should they go? What's the best place online?
Our Instagram, so Abigail does our marketing, runs a good Instagram for Zambrero Ireland. So that would be our generic update. And find me. I'm on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to connect or ask questions, send me a mail. I'm very happy to pick up the phone and have chats with people. And I do, and I have, like I said, because a lot of people were so good to me at the start. And, and I am quite young. I am quite still pretty inexperienced, but I have learned a lot over the last few years that, I could pass on to. A lot of guys would pick up the phone and be like, I'm thinking out in the coffee shop. What do you reckon? And I don't know why, but a lot of people have this dream of opening a coffee shop, and it's not as easy as you think. And everyone has this other idea that, oh, there's so much money to make in coffee. First of all, you want a good barista, you're paying for a good barista. You want a good coffee bean, you're paying for a good coffee bean. You want a good machine, you're paying for a good machine. You want to be in a good location, you're paying for it. Yeah, there's a bit of a margin on the coffee that comes out to what they sell, but when you add everything else in, it's not that much. And if you sell a lot of 3-4 euro coffees to have a good life at the end of it, you have to have multiple sites. So it is hard. So it's just trying to, set guys' expectations sometimes, or at a coffee shop and like $5,000 I want to open it. Well, the $5,000 won't even buy you machines. So you're gonna have to look for more money somewhere else. So it's just if anyone did want to, I'm on LinkedIn, Darragh Fanning, you'll find me there if you want to chat.
Right. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sending you and the team power and energy for the exciting journey ahead. It's a busy first quarter I can see ahead for you guys.
Yeah. No, it's been amazing last year, but very excited for next year. We just restructured our operational team, like I mentioned briefly earlier. We've a number of new restaurants opening. We've a manager from one of our current restaurants was leaving, which would have been a shame to see him leave the brand, but I'm delighted that he's actually going to move into our operations team now full time. So he's going to stay in the brand. So it's all about trying to keep good people in the brand for me, and that's what it is, and that's what we're lucky enough with, like our franchisees. Like I said, we're having the quarterly reviews, and I'm not dreading one of the phone calls. I get on and have chats because one, I know they're trading well, and one, I have a good relationship with them. So it's nice to have conversations. So not wishing away this Christmas, but looking forward to Christmas. But I am looking forward to next year as well.
Great, great. Good luck there. Thank you.
Thank you.